Today we're touring the idyllic upstate New York home of Andrew Arrick and Michael Hofemann, founders of the Hudson Valley-based home and apparel shop, Finch. Bringing in moody colors and a stunning curation of found objects and antiques, they transformed this 19th century Dutch colonial home into one that is brimming with character and a sense of overall coolness.
So we started with the exterior of the house, and it's painted in a color called Railings by Farrow and Ball. So it's really like the deepest blue that sometimes translates as being black, sometimes it translates as being anthracite, like sometimes if it's snowing outside it looks a little bit more dark blue, like it changes with the light, which is really beautiful.
They walk us through their exquisite art and never-ending collections of treasures.
This definitely turned into a room to house a lot of my collections. One of them is this collection of glass paperweights. This is something that my dad had. He had a vast collection of these.
Showcase their picturesque garden.
All of the beds were hand built. Actually, Andrew and I built out the whole garden ourselves. Someone else helped put up the fence. We changed up the garden shed, which had an ugly door and with a French double door and French zinc round windows to the side. Those were added.
And even take us on a visit to their luxury store, Finch, a feast for the eyes, to watch Andrew and Michael's full home tour ad-free, where they tour us through their powder bath and dressing room, scan the QR code, or click the join button below.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Michael.
Welcome to our Hudson Valley home.
Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see them. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi, I'm Andrew Arrick.
And I'm Michael Hofemann, and we're the co-owners of Finch.
And you're at our home in Churchtown, New York. When we first came up here to the Hudson Valley, we purchased a farmhouse, a very large farmhouse, which a lot of people, weekenders, do when they come up from the city because of the excitement of finding something that's generally the same price as a studio apartment. So all of a sudden we found ourselves with a 4-bedroom farmhouse that quickly, after a number of years and really enjoying the house, turned into a never-ending project and too much house to handle. So we put that on the market, and just coincided with, unfortunately, with COVID. So we sold the house. We were at the house during COVID, and then found this house around the same time. What drew us, besides the fact that this is probably, like 1,500 square feet smaller than our previous house, and that was definitely one of the things we were looking for, was to downsize. We loved the structure. It's an 1830s Dutch colonial. We loved the style. We loved the bones. Being who we are, we knew that there was a lot of aesthetic work that we wanted to do to improve the house and the property, but it really was just a very appealing house in a great location. So yeah, that's what drew us to the house.
Yeah, it also has 5 acres in a deer fence, with a deer fence around it. So everyone up here, no one can have a garden unless you have a deer fence. So I'm able to build out these beautiful gardens and have a vegetable garden, and it's sort of that beautiful, perfect upstate, experience.
And it keeps the dogs in.
Usually.
Yeah. Here we are in the front hallway of the house, and as I had mentioned prior when talking about color inspiration, this is where I brought railings into the interior from the exterior of the house and brought it up the stairs, up the stairwell, and then all of the trim in this room. And you can see our love for dogs up on the wall, portrayed on the wall, with a mixture of vintage paintings and a couple of other more contemporary pieces. There's a Hugo Guinness there. And then a friend of ours who does these beautiful watercolors, Mary McGuire. And then up at the top of the stairs, we have some photographs of a couple of our dogs who are no longer with us. Another thing to note is the runner that we found is a vintage French rag carpet that we had made for the runner, and then you'll see there's a little piece of it that's upstairs as well. So the hallway, so the paint in the hallway is the only place where I actually just did a really clean, pure decorator's white, because there's so much color everywhere else. I thought that it was a nice area where it could be sort of like a neutral cleansing palette. The light fixture in the hallway is a fixture from An Tradition Copenhagen, which is one of the new furniture lines and lighting lines that we carry at the store. And this is a handmade blown glass pendant. So when you first drive up to the house, really all you see is the garage. And so we had these beautiful custom garage doors put in because that's really the main visual as you're driving up to the house. When you walk up to the house, there's beautiful stonework and some plantings, some of which were in place, but we've really added so much for the planting, and Michael can definitely get into that because it's one of his passions. But you walk up to the side door, which is really the main entrance that we use to enter into the house, and it takes you right into the kitchen. The kitchen, which is like probably like half the size of what my previous kitchen was, and it still ends up being the one room that everybody always wants to congregate in when we have friends over for dinner. So I'm dodging people and dogs when we're trying to make dinner. But you walk into the kitchen, and then you can either turn right into the den, which is our family room, and the room that we're in now. It's also Michael's office, and we really use this room the most, I think, out of anything in the house.
The previous owner, which I'm really very grateful for, put in a lot of bluestone walls and walkways. And so when Andrew said it has good bones, that's really part of it for the outdoor as well. So it's kind of what's great is that it creates this sort of canvas that you can start layering on top of. So I'm a big outdoor garden guy, so I spend most of my time outdoors if I can. So I'm constantly changing, constantly amending, and part of that is I enjoy the visuals of the property is something I enjoy every day. It's really something that gives for us, our previous house was great, but this one has the privacy, and it allows me to create far more garden and visuals that we did before. So it's great.
Michael also comes from a farmer's. So he's up at 5 a.m. pretty much every day.
That's true.
Outside in the garden working, and probably gets more done in the first 2 hours of his day than most people get done in their entire day.
Yes, I do wake up very early. It's great. I think it's maybe it's the farm boy in me. I don't know. My dad grew up on a farm. I spent my summers on the farm in South Dakota, which is where most of my family is. So I guess gardening and being outdoors is really part of my DNA, and I guess I can thank my dad for that.
So the house is pretty compact in terms of layout. From the den you can walk into the dining room, which is sort of a pass-through room to the other side of the house, which is where the living room, guest bathroom, and living room are, and then upstairs to the bedroom. So it's a pretty compact house, which is exactly what we were looking for, and perfect for two people with two very large, boisterous dogs.
Well, again, it was a 3,700 square foot house for two boys who don't have guests that often. So this one is just, it's compact. It's, I honestly, and I say this when people ask, is that it's just a little jewel box, and I wouldn't trade it for anything at this point. So this is the living room. It's a transition space from all parts of the house, really. There's a lot of really cool components to it. Built in, the room really lacked storage, and I actually bought overseas this Czech cabinet. It's probably from the 40s. And Andrew, his idea was to take this and then build cabinetry around it so we'd have more storage. It looks really great in this color, and it's now been wrapped around the door.
So also just further to that, what's nice with this is that we had our contractor raise it up. So it's a small room, and by doing that, it really makes the room seem a little bit bigger, that it has slightly taller ceilings. It gives the appearance of it being all a little bit more open. And we also, because we had a huge pantry in the other house, we had no storage in this house for anything. So I still have probably like 8 or 9 boxes of things that are in the basement that still have nowhere to go.
Yeah. And it's another good example of a mix of styles. The chairs are 70s Italian, 50s Danish table, 1930s Jens Risms chairs on either side in beautiful strap leather. In the middle, against the wall, this amazing cabinet of drawers, which was probably for a jeweler or something that in more of a commercial setting. And we brought it into the store. And it sort of sat there for a week, and then a second week, I assumed it would just be sold in a minute. And then we realized it would look amazing here, so I put a hold sign on it so that we can decide if we wanted it. And of course, the minute I put this hold sign on it, everyone wanted to buy it. And normally, I never say no to people because I just I want to sell it and make them happy. But it was just one of those things that I didn't want to lose. So I kept the hold sign on it and kept telling people no. And eventually I moved it here so that we'd stop, teasing everyone about the fact that there's a cabinet that's been on hold for 3 weeks in the store. But it looks perfect. It just adds that sort of sense of, I don't know, it sort of fills the wall. It has visual interest, and I just love the worn wood.
And adds warmth.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, it has wear to it, and it's sort of that perfect worn piece. And it's also got very narrow depth, which is really important for a room that doesn't really have a lot of square footage. So
I think also another great thing to note is the painting. This is a more recent acquisition, but this is a local mid-century artist. He was an artist in New York City for many years named Eugene Arcieri, and he settled in Woodstock, New York, in the later part of his life. And we have this really wonderful art dealer that we buy from, and he bought many pieces from the family after Eugene's death in his 90s, and he was apparently painting well into his 90s until he passed away. So we do have many of these pieces in the store, but this was one that really spoke to us from a color perspective, and so we brought it in here. We thought it was a great addition.
And next to it really is one of my favorite pieces in the house. It's a sculpture of either a dog or a lion. It's from Finland. It's from the 1930s. It's a beautiful Finnish sculpture. It's really one of my favorite pieces. So we've actually bought the lights from a local dealer in Hudson. They are really known for having this great vintage lighting. But what's interesting is that we're trying to, again, mix styles and not be somewhat unexpected to have a pair of Sputnik lamps in the room, and I think they're perfect. I love Sputnik lamps, and to find a pair is kind of rare, so it was great.
So the rug we chose here, we really chose for the color. It's a modern rug, so it's contemporary. But we loved the colors here, bringing in pink and blue. We used Hague blue in the kitchen, which is adjacent to the dining room. So I felt that having shots of blue in this room would actually be really successful and kind of tie it in together. And then the little bits of pink with all of the gray that we used around the house, I think really helps kind of warm each room up.
We do host dinner parties, but I feel what's great about more recently, because we've just been so busy and we're sort of building on the business that we have now with a new business, is that Andrew's office is way over in the corner and I'm way over here, so we can't hear each other. So he's now he's decamped here. So at this point, it's now become his office, so that we can talk to each other and get work done. The goal is to not start talking to him until after he's had his coffee, and at least wait till 9 a.m., which I rarely buy. Yeah,
he can't control himself. So aside, short of putting in an intercom system between our offices, since he can never hear me when I'm yelling something, or actually sometimes what happens is I don't even yell. I'm just talking to him like he can hear me, and he can't obviously hear me. So because we've been so busy lately, it's easier just to talk to each other from here. So I do end up using this table for my desk, which is not ideal.
One day you'll get back over there.
Yeah.
Really, Andrew, his dad, started this idea of creating these collections, and his house was filled, and it still is now, with collections of everything. And so it's really something that Andrew's very attracted to, and he doesn't realize he's doing it, but he starts collecting things, and all of a sudden we have a collection of, and we put them together. So I've been buying, I started to buy a lot of these beautifully shaped, hand carved and polished wood balls that now become the collection. There's a couple in beautiful marble, and so I think we'll be adding more.
Oh yeah, the marble. Actually, the marble was from Jossie at Red Chair.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a really great store in Hudson. She covers French and Belgian antiques, and it's amazing.
So that's the other hard part about going to visit friends, that they all have these amazing things in their stores, and then we always want to buy something when we're in their store. So we do support, a lot of the dealers do support each other in that way, but we have quite a few vintage French glasses in here that are all from Red Chair, from Jossie. So it's fun to be able to support the other dealers. We also just have some really beautiful pieces of Astier pottery, Astier de Villat out of Paris. So various pieces. Unfortunately, sometimes a piece comes home because it's broken. So
it's fair game. If there's a chip, we get to keep it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we do have some beautiful pieces from Astier. We've got some dinner service from them. The pottery is gorgeous. They're known for their white glazes on black clay, and they're really just beautiful, clean, simple. So yeah, the collections grow. As you're looking around the house and seeing the various pieces of art that we have, we really do mix a lot of styles. So we have mid-century art, we have more contemporary lithographs, we also have 19th century oil paintings. And they all coexist well. When we bought the house, it was yellow, which is not
a very nice color. Not our color.
Yeah. I was really feeling that I wanted much more saturated color. I wasn't quite sure when we first bought the house how that would execute. But I went through a sort of like a white and beige phase in the other house, in the farmhouse. And so really wanted to embrace color here, and whether that was wall color or through artwork or rugs or whatever, that was really my intention. So we started with the exterior of the house, and it's painted in a color called Railings by Farrow and Ball. So it's really like the deepest blue that sometimes translates as being black, sometimes it translates as being anthracite, like sometimes if it's snowing outside it looks a little bit more dark blue, like it changes with the light, which is really beautiful. So I started with that, wanted to also have that be incorporated in the house. So in various rooms, I used that railings color up the stair railing, I used it for trim, onto the second floor, and then built it from there. So the rest of the main color that's on the first floor is Mole's Breath. It's a beautiful gray, also from Farrow and Ball, and that was sort of a mistake because I told our painter to get something else. There was another gray that I was fixated on, and I told him to get that, and he ended up coming back with Mole's Breath, and I was freaking out thinking it was a mistake, and then it ended up being all over the house. So what we did was the room that we're in now, I painted the walls in just a flat Mole's Breath, including all of the trim. So the trim and the walls are all the same. And then brought the Mole's Breath into the dining room, and then brought it into the living room. But in the living room, everything is painted in high gloss. So I played around with finish, but kept that sort of common thread of color throughout the house so that subliminally people sort of, maybe they register it, maybe they don't.
So when he says color, he means dark, moody, black and gray, and and putty, dark putties. So yeah,
I like moody colors. And and then we had the floors in this room and the kitchen stripped to
they were orange, so that had to go.
They were like a very odd color. So we had them stripped and then had them kind of not bleached, but it's sort of, what's that? It's like a Nordic seal or something.
Arctic sealer.
And then brought in color with the saturated indigo over dye carpet. This is the room that we really consider our family room, and we spend the most time in here throughout the day, and definitely at the end of the day. It's also turned into our room where we, in the winter, we light a fire and pour ourselves a whiskey and kind of chat about what's going on at the end of the day, because it's also Michael's office. But we also watch TV in this room.
Well, sort of.
We don't have a TV. There's no TV.
This is our TV.
Yeah.
It's the only TV allowed in the house.
Yeah, which all of our friends can't believe when we say we don't have a TV, but no TV in the house. Right. It just wouldn't work with the visual.
So this is probably a 1970s addition to the house. When we bought it, the mantle behind you was like a 70s very simple white thrown on a couple pieces of plywood, essentially. So what's amazing is that it's an 1830s house, and just at the moment that we needed it, after we bought the house, I found at an auction this 1930s mantle. It was full of dirt and grime, and so what we didn't want to do was to get rid of all of the beautiful patina to it, and we didn't want to repaint it, so we took a lot of time and effort to remove as much of the grime as we could to leave this really pale blue original color to it. And so essentially now we have this mantle that essentially could have been there when it was made. It was a very lucky find.
It was pretty grimy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my office essentially, but I get to stare out at the beautiful garden every day. And it is, you can see the difference between my desk size versus the one that Andrew has, which is 5 times larger. It has to do, of course, with the size of the room, but I'm very happy with my
Well, because I also need the surface for my collections.
You need surfaces for your collection, definitely.
The other thing about this room, what's great, is that we put in these windows. There was a French door here that wasn't great, that led out to a pretty bad sort of tiered deck that just didn't work. So we tore that off, put in the windows, and created a beautiful sort of private rose garden that you'll see.
So I think this is probably one of Andrew's favorite little corners for lots of reasons. One is, again, it's that mix of styles. 50s Italian lamp with a 19th century portrait. His beautiful vintage bar set as a collection, which he always does. And we actually, again, we bought this for the store. This amazing, probably late 1930s, early 1940s Danish cabinet, which is made with a beautiful burl wood and all this structural geometric inlay. And so this became almost the primary piece for the room. It was supposed to. We had it at the store, and it literally, I couldn't let it even sit there for a day. I had to bring it home. Sorry, everybody. I get to keep it, and it's our bar. So this is where.
So it became a source for my bourbon.
Yeah, for your bourbon. That's what this is for.
Yes.
Yes.
We have very little overhead lighting. Everyone I think after a certain age looks better in 25 to 40 watt bulbs in mood lighting.
Actually, the main reason is that the ceiling is so low that you really couldn't put an overhead lighting to it, and everything looks really much better with a vintage table lamp or floor lamp, I think.
Yeah, we sort of prefer to have outside of the obvious, like having overhead light in the kitchen, which you need. We prefer lamplight in all of the rooms. So, certainly when we get home, we're going room by room, turning on all the lamps, right?
Actually, I turn on all the lamps.
You always leave them on. I turn them all off. He turns them all on, and I go around the house turning them all off.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's for us. It's that mix of style. This is a room where we wanted to put some pops of color as well. It's a 1960s Bogue Mogensen, which is probably the most famous of the modernist mid-century designers in Denmark. It's a Danish painting from the 19th century with this chair in the corner. Is from 1930s. It was made in Finland in the 1930s, and we just redid this chair. It is a late 1930s tank chair. It's made in Czechoslovakia, similar to the Alto tank chairs that preceded it, but it's a Czech chair. We put on, what's the fabric?
It's a Dadar velvet called Tiger Mountain, and it's definitely. It's such a beautiful fabric and a beautiful chair, and we're really enjoying the fact that it's clean for 5 minutes before it becomes Beatrice's chair.
Yeah. So normally it's going to have a towel on it so that Beatrice doesn't get dirt and mud on it. Everything in the room, when no one else is looking, has a towel. or you know, a blanket or something. Yeah, and the other part of the mantle is the screen is from a friend of ours who gave this to us. It's early 19th century, and it just fit perfectly. It's kind of it ended up being perfect.
This is the same. So the paint color in this room is mole's breath, which is the same in quite a few of the other parts of the house. And in this room specifically, I kept everything in an eggshell finish. So the walls and all of the trim is in the same finish. And then you'll see throughout the rest of the house where I kind of play around with either using this color on trim or using it on the walls again, using it in high gloss versus using it in flat or eggshell. I like playing around with those types of finishes. And then all of the doors are painted also in a gray, which actually reads as blue. It's called Parma gray. And so the doors are all in high gloss Parma gray. So rug and floor is important in here too. So in this room, because this was more of a recent addition, the previous owners or whoever put this room in tried to do their best to match the color of the floor to the old pine floors. And it ended up looking very sort of cherry red. It just wasn't, the color just did not really work. So we had the floors stripped and the color taken out of them to really create this very sort of Nordic vibe and have them be much more white. So that is in the kitchen and in this room. And then we have a collection of these really beautiful vintage over-dye carpets. And this one used to be a little bit more indigo than it is now because it's showing its wear. Because we're walking in and out of here through the back door, it's definitely getting a little bit more worn out. But we have all these vintage overdyes, and they come in all sorts of colors. This one is indigo, and you'll see the one in the living room is actually a much more saturated, darker color because it doesn't really get much traffic on it.
So the bear sculpture is from the late 1930s. His name was, it's made in Denmark. He was the head of Royal Copenhagen. He created this amazing line of ceramics that were all heavily glazed. He called it his sung glaze. And it has modeled gold and brown and almost primarily animals. And this was probably one of my favorites. He did a lot of bears. And they get much larger, and he also did really small pieces that sort of lived on into the 50s and 60s that were still produced. But this particular bear is from the 1930s.
So when we reconfigured the room and took the French doors out on this side, we reinstalled the back door where it once was. So we put in a Dutch door and created this great little mudroom since we didn't have a mudroom in the house. So we needed a place to sit and put on our boots before going in and out to the garden. So this is the kitchen and kind of one of my places of refuge. It's really, when I first moved into this house, thought that this was going to be way too small since my kitchen in the farmhouse was double the size of this. And it's turned out to be really just the perfect cook's kitchen. If you're a cook, you know that, if you're cooking and you're cooking for a lot of people, being able to reach the stove and the sink and the island and everything, it just makes it so much easier to cook in here. So the previous owners did not use this to cook in. I don't think, it was a weekend house for them, and it wasn't a focus for them. So when I came in, I knew immediately that there were some things that I needed to do. I needed to add some storage. I needed to change essentially everything. So this was a gut renovation. We added cabinets. I took cabinets out that were here and put in this floating shelving, which I thought was a really beautiful way to kind of bring in some warmth through the wood. We redid the countertops and the faucet, and then of course painted everything. The color in here is Faro and Ball Hague blue, and again sort of like continuing with that very sort of moody, saturated color that I was looking for. Still getting some vegetables from the garden. These are all end of season tomatoes from Michael's garden, which are ridiculous. They're just so amazing. It's been such a good tomato season. And it just keeps on producing and producing. We're definitely those people who show up to other people's houses with bags of vegetables, whether they like it or not. The island is something that ended up being really perfect for us. We had this in our old house, but it was in a very small part of the previous kitchen. And we bought this from our friends, Kurt and Kevin in Hudson. And it's such a beautiful, thick piece of marble. And I did not want to give this up. And it turned out that it was perfect. It was a perfect fit for in here. It's the perfect size. As always happens, whenever we have friends come over, everyone ends up being in the kitchen. And this is definitely not the size kitchen to have 8 people hanging around while I'm trying to cook. But inevitably, that's what happens. The light fixture above the island is something that we actually bought from another dealer in town who always had amazing architectural salvage. He's unfortunately since passed, but had an amazing space at the antique warehouse. And I bought a couple of these copper drums from him, and we had them wired and turned into lighting. I also have one hanging in the store. This was all built. Like I mentioned, there was no storage at all and no pantry. So I had all of this built for dry storage for food. And then also around the corner had to create another small thing here for the dogs so that the dogs have a place for their food. The sink was here. I ended up putting in new counters and a new faucet. Yeah. The faucet is Barbara Wilson's out of London. Which is, for anyone who has done a kitchen renovation, knows that you can go down all sorts of rabbit holes of kitchen hardware and faucets, and to find something that's really good is not that easy, and also not for the faint of heart because they're usually pretty expensive. But this is such a beautiful unlacquered brass fixture, so it's really just picking up all of the usage. It's picking up from oils from your hands and from water and starting to really look very aged. The sink was here, which I thought was actually a nice farm sink, so that I kept in. And then put in the white marble with the marble backsplash. Most of the flowers that are in the house are actually from the yard, that we foraged from the yard. So this is wild aster that's in bloom right now at the end of the season. And there are various, we have some beautiful hydrangea that you'll also see that are in the house. But there's such great end of season flowers and branches this time of year. This was also one of the rooms that they had put in a new floor, and it was like a cherry stained pine. So we stripped this color out of this floor and then put this great vintage rug down underneath the island. And then I had the idea to throw in a cocoa mat here because this serves as the entrance that we use every day with the dogs. So I cut this out of the floor and had a recessed cocoa mat put in here, which is great just to clean off everyone's dirty feet and boots. Right off of the kitchen is the screened-in porch, which is one of my favorite rooms. I am really not happy when it gets very buggy outside. And also Beatrice actually loves this room too. So she always, when she has anything buzzing around her, she comes running back into the house. So we had this, we found this day bed also in Hudson, had the cushions recovered, and just some really, simple, neutral throw pillows in here. But it's such a beautiful room to hang out in at night, to have dinner out here. It's just magical. I mean, the light in here is beautiful, and the breeze, and also on a very hot summer night, to sleep out on the daybed is a bonus. So the furniture in here is all vintage finds. We found this table from our friend Robin in Hudson. These chairs are vintage French wicker chairs. Actually, they came from Fort Lauderdale, of all places. And then the pair of sconces hanging on the wall were actually a gift from my dad and his husband. And then there's one other piece in the corner that there's an iron eagle that's sitting on a rock or a stump. And that was also from a store in town that we bought from a dealer in Hudson. So back in the entry foyer, and off to the left is my office and the living room. So, of course, when Michael and I were both trying to figure out where we would set up our desks, I chose the biggest room in the house for my office. You can see that there's a slight difference in the size of desk versus his, again, so that I have a place for all of my various collections. But this is a fantastic, so the desk is 1960s, made in Germany. And we use this room in the winter. This is a great room in the winter. The fireplace works, and we all pile in here and we'll watch TV in front of the fire or just read a book in here. But we created this library. There was nothing in this room, no built-ins. So we created all of the built-ins. And then this room is also in mole's breath, but you can see, I'm not sure if you're picking up that you can see the shine on the wall, but I used a high gloss paint on the walls in this room, which ended up really looking like it's plaster. It's a beautiful execution. This is, I think it's 19th century mantel clock. And then we have a collection of modern and vintage candlesticks. These are new out of Copenhagen that we sell in the store. And then these were my mom's. And I don't remember if they were a gift from someone, but my mom left me those. And then various oil paintings that we collect, that we like to mix in, and again, mixing styles. This definitely turned into a room to house a lot of my collections. One of them is this collection of glass paperweights. This is something that my dad had. He had a vast collection of these. And so over the years, I would see them and started picking them up for myself. So anytime I find something that I find unique, whether it's just the pattern of the bubbles or in this case that there's a swirl in the center, I'm just always drawn, whenever we're shopping, I'm always drawn to finding them. They always have to be clear glass. And this is just a fraction of what I have. I've got them all over my desk, and they are in various rooms. And then I also, one that I found that I love recently is this faceted piece, which is amazing when the sun hits it, when the light hits it. It's just absolutely beautiful. I did notice, however, one time that when I walked in here, I all of a sudden saw this tiny little wisp of smoke and thought I was losing my mind. I was looking around thinking, what is this? And I noticed, and I looked down at my desk, and I noticed that one of the sunlight was coming in, hitting one of the prisms, and it actually was hitting this little wooden stand that I had in the other prism, and it was burning it. So it's a good thing that I caught it. But yeah, that was kind of crazy. So this was a gift from Michael. Michael, do you remember what the age is of this?
Danish 60s.
Danish 1960s. And when my dad passed away, he had this in his living room. And I just always remember looking at this and thinking I loved it and thought it was cool. So yeah, I was able to get this when he died. Just lots of collections. This was from an antique dealer who actually had this amazing place in Red Hook, and she's no longer there. She's since passed away, but she had this great collection of all sorts of objects. We have a couple of hand-painted blocks in the other room, but this was something that's a horse for that. I think it goes on a horse bridle. So I thought that was great. And then this also another nod to my dad, but he had this great collection of all of these little toys, these collapsible little toys, and he gave this to me a number of years ago. So this I keep in a prominent area, paying homage to my dad. The desk is just, it's again, there's so many different collections of things that I just pick up in various places as I'm traveling. It just, it's kind of random, whatever speaks to me. This was a gift from Michael at one point, this brass bee. This is this very cool little object that we found at Brimfield by another friend of ours, a dealer who's also an artist. His name is Reese, and he gave this to me. But actually, Reese is an artist, and that's one of his paintings on the wall. He does beautiful, beautiful work. He's based in Kansas City and does amazing work. And that was one piece that spoke to us. The colors were perfect for this room and for the house, for the muted color palette that I have everywhere. So we fell in love with that piece. This piece behind me is an oil painting by a Danish artist named Isaac Sawyer. And again, we had this in our previous house and brought this with us because it is one of our favorite pieces of art. I just think that the quality is, it's amazing. I mean, the lines are so beautiful. She's just exquisite. And then another one of my favorite pieces is this great little Jefferson Heyman photograph that's in a vintage frame of course, a glass of bourbon. One of my go-tos. Yeah. I mean, there's so many vintage pieces, and these were also from my dad. Like, there's all sorts of things. What's funny is that with like a little nod to humor is that there's this little thing called a Hoptimist. When Michael and I were just in Copenhagen for 3 days of design, we walked into the department store there, and they had this huge wall filled with all sorts of shapes and sizes of these little guys in different colors. And I thought, oh my God, this is brilliant. So I bought this one there. And then I subsequently have found them, and we carry them in the store. But it's one of those things that you just sort of play around with, and it makes everybody laugh. Kids love it, adults love it. It just makes everyone smile. I group like objects together, and I mix in some other pieces that I think might work with it. Just sort of play around with it. So I also don't take it that seriously, you know. So I don't force it, but I also just try to have it happen organically as I'm placing pieces and stacking books and finding a new object and, you know, finding another cube or something like that, that it just kind of all sort of happens organically. Even this pair of glasses, I was wearing these glasses and they broke one day and I lost the arm, and I thought, oh, they actually look kind of cool just sitting there like that as an object. And so they've stayed like that for a year. And occasionally when I've lost my glasses, which I do all the time, I just pick these up and put these on. So the sectional sofa in here is from Copenhagen, from a company called And Tradition that we sell in the store. And this was one of the early versions of it. And I thought that it was such a great sofa for in here. I love the lines. It's you know, great that it has a low back, so it's not so, for a wide, large sectional sofa, it's pretty inobtrusive in the space because of the height of it. What's lovely about this is that it's this really beautiful, again, this sort of saturated, beautiful, moody color, this sort of gray blue. It's a Raf Simons fabric that he designed for Kvadrat. And this is great. The only thing with this sofa is that the dogs, when they're allowed into this room, also love the sofa. So I'm always brushing dog prints off of the seat. The chair here is a 1960s vintage cognac leather chair. And then the chair here is something that we found, also a vintage piece, and we recovered it in a men's suiting fabric. Now in this room, I had referenced the saturated vintage overdye rugs, and in here, this is one of the indigo, sort of gray indigo vintage rugs, which I thought looked beautiful on the original pine wood floors. These are the original floors for the house in this color, and I thought that the gray and the blue here looked gorgeous. And of course, dahlias from Michael's flower garden, which is pretty amazing this time of year.
From a decor standpoint, we sort of have, when people come up here, they have an empty house, you know, kind of want to start with the larger things first and then go from there. There really isn't, you know, again, there's so many antique stores in Hudson, and it's you know, take your time. That's kind of been always our advice for people. And we actually advise people to, you know, mix styles. You know, people want to sometimes go with one era or one visual, and you know, we're sort of big fans of mixing that up. You can put vintage, you know, even 19th century pieces can sit and fit well with 1930s or 1940s pieces. So mixing up is definitely something that we tell people to do. So. Well, I mean, part of it for us is that because we have a vintage shop in Hudson, we cover. You know, we're modernists, but we, you know, include 1920s to 1970s, maybe 1980s in terms of the era for furniture and decor. And so that's sort of what we've created here. So if you go through the house, there's every era, every modernist era, again, from 20s to 70s. And that's sort of how we built the visuals.
And it works well. I mean, it's you know, our whole kind of ethos is modern vintage. we play around with that concept all the time at the store, and we mix styles. And if it doesn't work, we change it. But most times it works. We definitely, you wouldn't necessarily think that a mid-century sofa or a mid-century tank chair would work in an 1830s Dutch colonial house, but we've made it work, and the juxtaposition actually is really nice.
And surprisingly, people ask you must change out your furniture all the time. We actually don't. We sort of find the things that work, and we sort of we keep that. We change things a little bit.
But the rule is one thing in, one thing out. So if we have to, because we don't have room for anything else. So if something new comes in, something has to go back to the store.
Right. That is true.
Yeah. So this is the primary bedroom. We opened this room up during the renovation. There was a very strange little room right here that we think that they used for a kid's room or something. We don't really know. So we took that all out, moved the closets back, and it really just opened up the whole room beautifully with light. So we have this small reading nook, which is great. And then also another one of Jim Oliveira's pieces. This piece actually started off at our loft in the city when we were still living in the city in Brooklyn, and it's moved around from space to space. And it's just, what I love about this, in addition to it being gray, because I have an affinity for gray, is that there's so much depth in there. The gray changes in light, and the variations which look more light gray and anthracite, it's so beautifully done. This is also one of Jim's early pieces. As you walk into the room, we threw in a shag carpet in here to really sort of soften things up. I have a faux shearling Swedish armchair, 1940s Swedish armchair, that actually became Augie's chair. That's his bed. And then our bed, we have a vintage rosewood headboard in the room. And then really one of the key pieces that we're really excited about is that this is a new Finch bench. This is our first branded piece of furniture, Finch branded piece of furniture that we're launching very soon. And it comes in multiple colors and sizes, and this is a Zack and Fox fabric that we used for this. There's also a strapped leather version. So this is something that we're very excited about. So the painting above the bed was actually a recent Brimfield find. It was one of our favorite finds from Brimfield from a couple of seasons ago. And so that came home with us. We had sort of a joke about this too, that it was something, as soon as we put it on Instagram, that someone was going to want to buy it. And immediately I received a DM from someone saying they wanted to buy it. But I knew it would be perfect. I knew that the size was perfect for here, and also knew that the colors would work well. So it stayed. So it came home with us. This is a vintage Swedish bed cover that we also had in our loft in the city. And again, thought it was perfect for in here, and the colors are just great. They work beautifully. We did put the windows in. We added the windows on that wall. There was one window in the center, and we really wanted to maximize the light, but also the enormous trees that are surrounding the house. There are these beautiful 150-year-old trees that are surrounding the house. So we really wanted to be able to see those from every room and gain as much natural light as possible.
This is actually one of my favorite design spots in the house. This is an Arnie Norell Safari sofa. It is really one of my favorite design pieces, and we do try to buy them for the store every time we find them. They do them in 3-seaters, lounge chairs, but it was perfect for this small space. And again, I'm into really all this leather strapping, and this is an Italian 60s leather strap bench. It probably would have had a top on it, but I bought them without it, and I think it looks great without having to put any a cushion on top of it. And the wall is, of course, there's an industrial light we got a long time ago.
That we actually bought at ABC.
We did?
Remember?
I don't remember.
ABC like 25 years ago.
I don't remember that. That was 25 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then of course the wall. I mean, you'll find in the house we are attracted to male portraits, so you will find those all around the house. And some of them are photographs. And this is really an eBay find. This one behind the light. It's an 18th century etching, and I found it on eBay, believe it or not. And there is a little Italian piece on the left, and this middle artist is a Hudson artist who passed away some time ago, and a friend of ours had collected most of his pieces and was selling and offered a few of them to us. So the middle piece is a local Hudson artist, and I'm not going to remember the name, but it's such a great, has great style. Yeah.
And this also has become Beatrice's bed. So the dogs eventually take over everything.
They do.
Yeah. So Beatrice sleeps on an Arnie Norell 1960s original leather sofa. The bathroom is something that I'm really proud of because it was a wreck, and this is a total gut renovation. We had to gain some space back, so we took closets away from the other side and put the shower and bath back here. But they really had not touched this, the prior owners. So we took everything down to the studs and redid the whole thing, brought in the same white marble as we used in the kitchen for the counter, and put in beadboard, ceiling and wall, beadboard, and then white tile on the floor. Added in this brutalist bench from Finland, and also great little shots of artwork. Nina Hagen, which is this great sort of street artist. I think we had a collection of all these pieces, and so that was one that we kept that we love to have on the radiator. The hawk is a late 17th century woodblock. From Japan. So when we bought the house, the garage had really horrible, cheap garage doors on it. So after painting it the same color of the house, we put in these custom doors.
Actually made of mahogany that
yes,
that allows them to stay, that keep.
Yeah, and then put the pergola across the front to have vines growing over it, and we built the pergola over the walk to the back door to visually connect the two structures. We also, which you can't see underneath all of the leaves so well, but we did add this area of concrete unit pavers to be able to drive up here, and this was...
When you say we...
Well, visually, I had a part in it, but Michael actually did the work himself.
Yeah, it sort of, I almost lost all my fingers doing it. So, yeah.
But it was a great visual to be able to keep this green, keep grass on it, but still have it be a part of the driveway.
Yeah, so welcome to the vegetable garden. It is, what I do the first thing in the morning, at first light every morning. It is definitely a passion, and what keeps me a little grounded. It's kind of funny. We lived in the city for so long, you sort of forget sometimes that, when I grew up, my dad, who grew up on a farm, but really we lived in a small suburban house. He took over half the backyard for a vegetable garden. And when the neighbor behind us got too old, he took over her vegetable garden. So growing up, I always had this, my dad always had this great vegetable garden, which I didn't really have an interest in. And, as a kid, you just, that wasn't my thing. And it was interesting that as I got later in life, and when we decided to move up here, how important it was for me to have one. And I always feel my dad sort of smiling ahead, above me. So this is, so we, all of the beds were hand built. Actually, Andrew and I built out the whole garden ourselves. Someone else helped put up the fence. We changed up the garden shed, which had an ugly door and with a French double door and French zinc round windows to the sides. Those were added.
Also, it was raised because we had some uninvited guests that were in the garden.
So for, I don't know how many years, there were groundhogs living underneath the shed. So the only way to get them out really was to lift up the structure, evict them, and then put a concrete slab in there so they wouldn't come back.
We evicted them.
However, they're back, so they're still even further underground, underneath the concrete slab. So yeah. I don't think we're ever going to fix that one.
And then the newest addition to the space is the greenhouse, which was partially Michael's birthday present. Partially an obsession of Michael's.
It's an obsession because I've been collecting components. I've always wanted one. And I knew one day we'll have a greenhouse. So we bought, at least 8 years ago, these beautiful French double doors. And we also found at an auction the 8th turn of the century greenhouse windows. So this is a perfect example of that vintage modern. The the greenhouse is created from vintage components, and when we had to put the slab underneath the garden shed, I said, well, let's just put it over there since you're already here. Let's just put it here, and of course that became inevitable. We gave it to our contractor friend who took all the components that we had found, and then built the greenhouse around the components that we've had. Literally, I've had them stored in a garage for 5 to 8 years, waiting for that one day we're going to have a greenhouse, and it really turned out so incredibly well. It's going to give us enormous pleasure for many, many years to come. Yeah. So we just started the left. We're just starting now to build the garden on the left. We're starting to build the paved part of it with bluestone pavers, and eventually this will be a whole more of a shade garden.
And then we do some potting in here, some early season, early spring seed growing in here. And then I try to have a few other things potted in here. I'd love to have some tropicals in here, but it's not an all year greenhouse. So whatever tropicals I get in here would die unless I moved them into the house.
But we have lunches in here, and sometimes we have breakfast. It's just a beautiful spot that, and we have the gardens we're building out behind it. So that's coming next. Still work in progress, but this more work and it'll be perfect.
I don't know. What was the inspiration? I mean,
ultimately, as
you
far
knew
as
the space you wanted, right?
Ultimately, I'm going to put perennial beds and gardens everywhere. That's it's about as close as I can get it to what the inspiration is. I don't really have a specific design in mind. So it's sort of, I start adding more and more beds every year. There'll be another one. The whole side of the house over here is now going to eventually be something. Which I love about doing it this way is that the more beds and perennial gardens that we build, the more weeding I have to do. So
yeah. I think also that you're always sort of we're both drawn to these sort of romantic English gardens. We always reference these books that we have and gardens and in all sorts of, in definitely more temperate climates in the UK. And love how they sort of look effortless, and they're obviously not effortless, but they appear to be effortless and have beautiful wildflowers and just kind of free form, but also mixed in. He started to create some topiary, so that's in our future to have a couple of areas of topiary garden. Yeah. But we both are drawn to that very sort of like loose, like this idea of this vine that just happened while we were away for a week, and all of a sudden we came back and had this Jack and the Beanstalk thing happening along here with squash on it.
It's a squash plant that I didn't realize how big it was going to get, and then we just let it grow.
But we both sort of like that sort of like very natural, not forced look to plantings, to keep it more us. Neither one of us really likes to have a formal garden. The most formal garden I think that we have is probably our rose garden, that we'll show you. Right. This is the rose garden, and this is really the most informal, formal spaces that we've created. So when I mentioned before that there was a French door that was on this wall that came out to this tiered deck, which was really just executed poorly. So we tore that off, changed the entrance back to the back entrance. This bluestone patio was actually here, but we opened up the center and the two sides for plantings. We planted everything around here. We planted all of the roses back here. And it's just turned into this really beautiful little area to sit and have coffee and sometimes breakfast in the morning on a beautiful morning. And it's all coming in very nicely. We did this about 3 or 4 years ago now, and everything's coming in beautifully. The roses are out of control. They need to be trained a little bit over the trellis, but they're sort of gorgeous in that they're just draping down and falling down. And again, it kind of plays into that sort of like formal informality that we both really enjoy. And the roses this time of year have been just beautiful. And Augie enjoys it back here too, right?
Yeah, so I actually have a finance background. I had worked as an analyst for some investment banks, and it wasn't really, that wasn't the place I really wanted to be. So I did sort of end my career before coming up here as a CFO for a marketing firm. So I sort of got a little bit more of that creative part in my daily experience. So there really wasn't anything in my background that would have sort of placed me into what I now do and what I do for Finch. I am the primary vintage buyer, so I'm inspired by artists and creators and eras. So for some reason, my career doesn't have anything to do with what I'm now doing, which is I get to spend my life shopping, which is really not a bad gig at all.
Except that you do run the business side of things. So
right. So for Finch,
that's
I run the business side too, operations and logistics, and so I'm the vintage buyer. Andrew sort of does everything else.
Yeah. So we started the business, started conceptualizing the business about 13 years ago, but the store has been open now for 12 years. And I have a luxury fashion background, worked mostly in wholesale sales for the majority of my 25-year fashion career. It almost killed me. Towards probably the last 8 years or so of my career, I started to veer off into all sorts of other things. I went to school for landscape architecture, so I've always had a design background, and when I was growing up, my dad's partner was an interior designer, so I was always surrounded by that creativity when I was growing up. There was, I think at one point, about 13 or so years ago, where we were both kind of trying to think how we could, like a lot of people do who are weekenders upstate, how can they turn that into a full-time thing? And not everyone's lucky enough to be able to, or have the job to be able to do that, where they can leave and be in a totally different area. So we're fortunate in that regard that we were able to create the business and both transition out of our jobs. Although, that being said, pretty early on to being up here, after the first couple of years, we realized that one of us had to go back to work for health benefits and 401k.
We weren't prepared to be poor.
Yeah.
Leaving 2 full-time jobs for now not having any paid jobs.
So I did double duty for a number of years, where I was back and forth to the city every week, and Michael was up here full-time managing the store, and then I would be in the store on the weekends doing all the visuals, running through like a mad person, trying to get all that done, and then go back to work on Monday morning.
So what's your primary role at the store?
So my primary role at the store is I guess I'm the chief merchant. So what I was saying for the end of my sales career is that I did get into merchandising, product merchandising. I was building stores, and it was a much more creative role that I had. And so having both has really helped me in kind of achieving what we achieve in the store from a merchandising perspective. I traveled the world and had been in so many amazing experiential retail stores in all parts of the world, and I just always came back here thinking this does not exist in Hudson, and it could easily exist in Hudson, and so that's what we created.
So it's kind of crazy about upstate New York, and it's technically still a small town, is that there's probably 45 antique stores on one long street in Hudson. So it's a great destination, and it's a little unexpected. It's also grown considerably since we've been coming. We've been coming here for 20 some years. We've been together for 29 years now. Yeah. So we've been coming up to Hudson for a long time, just for the day trips, and it was always that town. Like we remember talking to all of the dealers, when we were just visiting and shopping before we came up here full time. And there was like, well, one day, Hudson's going to make it. Everyone had this sense that it's going to one day happen, and it kind of never really changed. And what's interesting is that it started to change before COVID, and then COVID ramped it up, post-COVID anyway. And that whole home space got ramped up, and all of a sudden Hudson is just becoming a different town with world-class people building amazing things upstate. There's the Clock Estate, the Churchtown Dairy, there's an amazing new French cafe, there's the Maker Hotel. All these things are being created that are really kind of world-class, they're just world-class places that didn't exist before, and no one in the past ever would have thought would exist in this little town in Hudson. So it's kind of amazing what's now happening. Yeah. Our shop is mostly a European design shop. We get most of our furniture overseas. We have a collection point outside of Copenhagen and a collection point in the Netherlands. So we cover all of the Scandinavian countries and all of the rest of Europe. We get a container in the shop every 5 or 6 weeks. So it's kind of, it's a constant stream of new pieces. We just got a container in yesterday, so I mean, I'm getting a little too old for this. It's getting harder and harder for me to do this.
We definitely need some younger people to help us unload the containers. For sure.
So it's a constant change in the store, which is really kind of refreshing. I spend my life shopping, so we did just get in, like Andrew mentioned. We got in a chair by Finch. He designed this, the grasshopper chair back in 1938. I think it was 38, and it was never produced. It was really kind of ahead of its time. It is the most beautiful, just the lines and the way the joinery works. It's one of my most favorite chairs of all time, for sure. So we just got one in. They're being made again today by the House of Finch, but this is so you don't see them very often. It is if you get an opportunity to see it one day, that they are. It's got this beautiful red leather, and it's also the most expensive chair I ever bought, but I think it's worth it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
For me, it's sort of collecting and finding objects. I'm always sort of looking for that next object and add to my collections that I have around the house, and specifically on my desk and in my office. And I definitely get that from my dad. My dad was a retired dentist turned antiques dealer. And so we were always, there were always new things coming into the house, but there were always these fantastic collections of things. So I definitely got bitten by that bug pretty early on. I think, like Michael said, we spend our lives shopping. He's buying all of the vintage furniture. And then I'm focusing on most of the new pieces, not just the new pieces, but because I certainly have an opinion about what we have in the store. But I'm always sort of interested in grabbing like another little object that we have and taking it home, because there's all these great things that we find, and we buy what we love. So that's also kind of the hard part sometimes. We buy for the store what we're attracted to and what we love. And so we always want to take something home, and we can't always do that, but that's the fun part. Yeah, so I'm always adding to my collections. Hey guys, welcome to Finch. Come on in.
Welcome. So the building was originally a 19th century townhouse, a very large one. It was turned into a apartment building in the 1930s, I believe, and it all burned down, and it became the phone company, which then turned into the police station. So this was a police precinct. There were no stores around at that time because no one wanted to be across the street from the police precinct. But it has been reimagined, and the I-beams above are original, the concrete floors are original, and everything else is really newly built, and it is now sort of transformed the rest of the neighborhood around here. It is now one of the largest retail spots in Hudson. Yeah.
He's also being kind because the building was a wreck, so it was a full renovation. Everything from the facade on up down to the studs, and so it was about a year-long renovation, and once we occupied the space for the first year, we built the second floor, and we added the square footage on the second floor when we added women's apparel and our design studio upstairs. Yeah. So as you can see, we're very full with furniture right now. Furniture is the main part of our business, but we also have candles, we've got bath and body, we have tabletop, glassware, and tabletop is back here. We have men's apparel in the back, coffee table books, more bath and body. So kind of a little bit of everything. We're kind of a mini department store.
So it's sort of similar to the house vibe in that it's a mix, again, back from the 1920s to 1970s. Right now there is, I shouldn't have just arrived, they're waiting to get on the floor. And
so what you'll find is that there's furniture times 10 in the basement waiting to come upstairs.
It is true.
Yeah. So when we started the process of building the brand, we always set out to create a lifestyle store and experience. So with that, we started adding categories over the years. So we've been in business now for over 12 years. We started off much smaller, in a much smaller space up the street on Warren Street. We've since added many categories, many product categories. Furniture we started off with, but we've then added tabletop, we've added bath and body, we've added men's and women's apparel. What else am I forgetting?
Textiles, lighting.
Textiles, lighting.
Yeah.
We pretty much have it all. One-stop shopping.
So mini department store.
We are open 7 days a week. We're only closed on Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Thanksgiving Day.
We essentially never close.
We never close. This is women's. We added women's apparel a couple of years ago. Have some really great brands. I really sort of, when I'm buying, I merchandise the apparel similarly to the way that I merchandise the rest of the store and furniture. It's a curated, edited collection, and it's very much, and from the apparel point of view, it's very much my aesthetic, my style. I have some friends that joke that they're going to all start wearing these slouchy pants and sweaters the same way that I am, which is true because that's like kind of what I'm drawn to and what I buy. Yeah. But it's been doing very well. And then we go into the back area where we have more furniture. We have a studio set up here for photography, so we can do some social posting here. And then our design studio is over in the far corner. When we're working with clients, we're choosing fabrics for upholstery. So all of that happens up here. What I really love about this home is the magic that I feel like we've created. It's our refuge after being so busy in the store every day and coming home and just having it be us with the dogs, whether we're gardening or we're mowing the lawn or we're, just making dinner. It's a place of refuge for me, and it's just, there's not a day that I don't feel when I'm driving up to the house and coming home and closing the gate behind me that I just kind of look around and think, oh God, I can't believe that we created this, that I just think it's so beautiful and a place where I want to be. Yeah.
I mean, I think that because it's a small house, I feel that it has this sort of, it's comforting, right? So it's not this big house where you don't use rooms. Every room we use, every part of the house is something that we enjoy. It's that little, like I said, it's that little jewel box, and it just feels kind of perfect for us. I love the big farmhouse that we had, but it was, 6 barns, one of which we used, and yeah. four bedrooms, guest bedrooms, only one of which maybe got used. So what's kind of great about this is that, again, it's a jewel box for us, and it becomes this sort of small, comforting home. And again, being upstate is kind of nice, and everyone talks about the idea of being upstate, but really it is about the beauty, the vistas, the dogs, the gardens, and we sort of have that perfect upstate life, and I don't forget that, that we actually were able to create this, and that we get to live in this wonderful place, in this beautiful area, and again, we have dogs and gardens, and we have a good life. We work a lot, but we have a good life.
We work a lot. And sometimes the dogs are very dirty. The dogs usually what they do is they're the ones that use the pool the most, and they usually go into the pool, and when they're wet and dirty, come right into the house. That's kind of a daily occurrence.
So it's pool, dirt, house, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the dogs do all day. Yeah.
So lots of dog towels around.
There are a lot of dog towels.
Yeah.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Normally there are. Yes.
For me, what makes a house a home is the memories that you create in the home. I mean, we have so many great pieces that surround us in the house, things that are new that we've just bought, that we just love for whatever reason, but also things from our families and just pieces that we love, and I think that's what makes it so special.
Yeah. I mean, what makes a house a home for me is Andrew, but Andrew and the dogs. I mean, really, that's what makes it a home for me. Yeah,
that's very sweet. Thank you. Thank you, Homeworthy, for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you in our home and our shop.
But we have to get back to work.
Do we?
We do. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.